Hello, everybody, and welcome to my review of the film The Witch. This movie stars Anya Taylor-Joy in one of her first breakthrough performances. This movie came out in 2016, was produced by A24, and has recently kind of gained a very large indie standing and a very big indie respect status. So I was eager to check out this film, so let me tell you guys my thoughts about this. The Witch is not your typical horror film. At a very lean and mean 90 minutes, it still feels considerably slow, at least for the first half of the film. So you will not get those, typical jump scare kind of vibes from this movie. This is a very, very slow moving, kind of atmospherically creepy, yet very deeply unsettling horror film that you really have to soak in rather than keep on waiting for the next jump scare. This is not that kind of film, and if you go in expecting that, you're gonna be disappointed, especially if you're more of the type of person who likes that kind of horror film rather than the type to basically just sit down and enjoy the atmosphere of this movie, because the atmosphere and tone of this movie are very, very commendable. So let's start by talking about that. This movie is set in the woods, in very secluded woods during the 1600s, and we follow a family of Puritans who are kind of going about their daily existence until, of course, things take a more sinister turn. Now, one of the most unsettling parts of this film, I would say personally, is the mood slash tone slash atmosphere of this film. One of the most interesting parts of this movie is, of course, its setting, and it's a very much working as a period drama as much as it is as a horror film, because historically this movie gives us quite a bit in terms of kind of the religious sentiment going on at that time and kind of more about puritanical ideals, and that was something really interesting to see. In terms of a horror element, the atmosphere, of course, definitely does work. Not only do we get some really stunning and creepy cinematography, just the fact that this entire family is secluded in the woods without any contact from anyone else. They can't whip out a cell phone, guys. This was the 1600s. So we get this very secluded, isolated feeling throughout this movie, and the cinematography and the way that they use production design to their advantage, using different kinds of lights and different kinds of lighting, candle lights, lantern lights, creates a very, very authentic but also creepy and unsettling atmosphere that is really enjoyable in some ways, but ultimately will make you kind of squirm in your seat because it creates such an uncomfortable, deeply, as I said, unsettling atmosphere. And we haven't even gotten down to the content of this film. Before I get into the content slash themes of the film, let's stop and take a moment to talk about the performances in this film. Anya Taylor-Joy, this is of course one of her biggest breakthrough indie performances. She's phenomenal in this film, and the best part about this movie is that she's not even the best part about this movie. The rest of the supporting cast in this movie is honestly amazing. The mom and dad, played by Ralph Ineson and Kate Dickie, are just phenomenal and bring a really good layer of groundedness and authenticity to this film, as well as the supporting cast of young actors and actresses in this movie that play the brothers and sisters of Anya Taylor-Joy's character. They were also really phenomenal in this movie. So the performances all across the board were great. And of course the cast is really small, which again kind of goes to show that with these like small family that we're focusing on, the movie not only stays on track, but also kind of gives you that feeling of seclusion and isolation while you're watching this movie. Ultimately, The Witch is kind of one of those movies where you're going to watch it and come out with more questions than answers. And that's something that some people like and some people don't. For me, it's a really interesting movie experience to watch those kind of films, and especially to watch a movie like The Witch, which has a very unsettling ending. Now, you can interpret this movie however you want, and I'm not going to necessarily provide my interpretation in this video, but this movie really has themes of puritanical ideals, very religious ideals and themes like that ingrained and interwoven into the movie, and kind of tries to make a horror film out of those ideals. Now, if you kind of look into this movie, it is based on a New England folktale and some real historical descriptions and accounts of some of the 1600s, witchcraft accusations and stuff like that. So you kind of can tell that there's a lot of, folk tale kind of inspiration for this film, and it kind of worked for me because it kind of gives it that nightmarish really chilling quality that is necessary for a film like this. And those are the two words that personally I would really use to describe a film like this that has such strong visual imagery but also uses the implications of its plot to create psychological horror. So for me, this is a really unique horror film. I think that it's going to take several viewings personally for me to really, wrap my head around and to really deeply fully appreciate. But upon first viewing, it is a truly interesting and unique film. And it's definitely very scary in its own kind of way, where it's kind of unsettling, creepy, tonally dark and atmospheric, and created something that was engaging, riveting, and really atmospheric. Ultimately, I was really engrossed into the movie. So for me, The Witch is going to get a B plus. This is kind of this grade. I can't really pinpoint specific things that much about why I'm giving this grade. This is kind of how I feel about the movie. And I wish I had a little bit more specificity to give you guys, but this is the type of movie that can't necessarily be fully evaluated, I feel, upon for its first viewing. So for me right now, it's a B+. I definitely see this grade going higher or lower depending on, viewings after that. I may not see it immediately after, but if I ever do, I feel like this grade could change. But for right now, this movie is a B+ for me. It's definitely worth checking out for being something weirdly unique and interesting. I think A24 as a production company puts their money on risky projects. This is one of those risky projects, I'd say. And even though it was mismarketed, I think if you go in with the expectation that this is not your, orthodox horror film, you might just get something interesting out of it. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all those great things, and keep looking for more videos. Thanks for watching, guys.